Hey everybody, welcome to the workshop. I'm Luke with Building with Kinfolk, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make one of my all-time favorite and one of my all-time best-selling tables. I've probably made thousands, if not tens of thousands of these things. They're so simple to make. You get all the lumber from your local hardware store, so like a Lowe's or a Home Depot, nothing specialized. You do want to make sure that when you're picking out your lumber, you really make sure you get straight boards here. We don't need anything that comes from the Twisty Farm where most of the products at Lowe's or Home Depot comes from. So make sure you do some good digging while you're there. You may take a little bit of extra time just to make sure that you have a straight board while you're there in the store. So, all that said, we're going to jump right into it. Here's what you're going to need. Alright, now let's go ahead and jump into this cut list. It's not that difficult, but remember, because we got wood that came from a general lumber store, we want to make sure we cut a little bit off of each end. This is just to make sure that we have a true 90-degree cut on our boards before we start. So, first thing we're going to do is take our 4x4s and we're going to make 4 legs. They're going to be 28.5 inches long. Next, for our 2x4s, on one board, you're going to cut 59 inches, and then you're going to make another cut at 25 inches. You'll do this same process with the second 2x4. On the last 2x4, we're simply going to cut it down to 28 inches. The last cut you're going to do is going to be on your 2x10s, and we'll cut those down to 6 foot, which is going to be the length of our table. Alright guys, now that we got everything cut up, let's grab what's going to be the most important tool for this project, besides your mind. I'm just kidding, that's so corny. The Kreg, the K4, the old pocket hole jig. If you ain't got one of these, get one. If you're not super familiar with using it with 2x4s, what I like to do is set this back plate to 1 3/8 inch. And then of course, on my bit itself, I make sure that collar is set to where I'm at about 1.5 inches. So that's where we want to be at for this. We're going to get it set up and start making some pocket holes, y'all. Woo! Alright, now we're going to do quite a bit of pocket hole drilling here. On all of our 2x4s, we're going to get 2 pocket holes on either end. Now, before we start into this, an important note, and this is building anything, especially when you're working with 2x4s that are probably crappy on one side or have writing on one side, maybe you don't want to work with sanding it out. You always want to make sure you pick what's going to be the best side here. Now, obviously, on this table, our pocket holes are always going to be going on the inside of the table so they're not visible, meaning that we want to pick the worst side of the 2x for that. Another thing to think is all of this is going to be for our apron. So whatever side is facing down, we want to make sure that that's smooth. We don't want to have any crazy jagged edges down here. If you've got boards that have some mess on them, I know like my 28-inch board is pretty messy there on the edge, if you can see that. And so I want to make sure whenever we start doing some holes going up to tie the tabletop down, we want to make sure that all that crappy stuff is facing up towards the table so that if you run your hands along the bottom, you're not getting any nasty splinters. So the first thing that we're going to do before anything else is we're going to go ahead and do the end pocket holes. 2 on each end. If you've seen any of my videos, you know how to do this. I just use both sides, the 2 outside holes of the jig, and stick this in here. And I'll do 2 holes here and 2 holes there. That simple. Now, on the 28-inch, it's going to go in the center. So it doesn't really matter as much which side is good or bad on that one. But on your 25 inches and your longer boards here, we do want to make sure that we have the good side facing out when we do this. So let's go ahead and start drilling some pocket holes. Alright, now comes probably what is the only super complicated part of this, making sure we get the Kreg holes that are going to hold the tabletop down correct on the 2x4s, the apron. Okay, so what we're going to do is on your long boards, it's not really a big deal actually because there's just one board running all the way down. We're not dealing with the planks that we're going to when we're talking about the width of the table. So going down right here, the only thing I want to avoid is the very center of the board. I don't want to put a Kreg pocket hole or a pocket hole there simply because we're going to have a piece of the apron underneath that's going to run down the middle of that board. What I do want to do is make sure I come as close to the edges as I can. In fact, a lot of times I'll even overlap the pocket holes that are there on the end that are going to be going into our legs just to make sure I'm as close to that edge as I can. On these boards, what I'm typically going to do is put about 3 pocket holes on each side of the center, so 6 pocket holes total. Again, make sure that the center of this board, which you've got 59 inches, so it's going to be 29 and a half inches is your center on this. So we'll go ahead and mark that just so we have a little point of reference. Beyond that, doesn't really matter. I'm going to put 3 X's. Again, this is where we make sure that we put the good side of the board facing the bottom, meaning that we want the Kreg holes. I'm going to put my X's on whatever side the crappy side is. And for this one, to kind of give you an example, you can see down here where I've got that knot taken out of it on the front. And really, it's not great either way. But if I had to choose a bottom, I'm probably going to put that knot closer to the top up here. So my pocket holes are going to go up on the top right here. So I'm going to do 1. We'll call it 2. I'm going to avoid that knot if I can. And then my third, I'm going to put way down at the end. Again here, 1, 2, 3 down at the end. We're going to replicate that. Of course, making sure we have the good side of this board. To be honest, this looks good either way, so not a big deal. We'll just keep it the same here. I'm going to put a mark there, mark there, mark there. Going to avoid that knot. All right, so you just got the long boards done. Now we're going to do the short boards. Now, in full transparency, when I originally filmed this, I messed up the video a little bit. My bad, so I'm having to reshoot it. But, you know, still using the same boards. Everything around may look a little bit different for this. But, you know, it's the exact same. So I just like to be honest with people. That's what my parents taught me. So anyways, I've got 3 boards laid out, 2 25-inch boards and a 28-inch board. The first thing we're going to do is mark the center line on all 3 boards. So of course, on the 25-inch boards, you're going to be looking at 12.5 inches. And then on your 28-inch board, you're going to be looking at 14 inches. Perfect. Once you have those marks, we're simply going to go ahead and make a mark on either side at 9.25, because that's how wide a 2x10 is. Makes perfect sense, doesn't it? Don't get what you pay for anymore in life. So 9.25, 9.25, same thing all the way down. 9.25, 9.25, and 9.25, and 9.25. All I'm doing is measuring from that center line on all 3. Now, what I like to do is go ahead and grab a square, which mine's hiding across the room from me, but make a line all the way across on all 3 of these. That way you have a good solid line. Great. Now you can see, if you can see, there's some lines right here that represents where the slats are going to be. Now we've already determined that the board is going to face, that this will be the top of our table. So we're putting our pocket holes down here. The way I'm going to do this is each board needs to have 2 pocket holes, 1 on each end. So I'm going to put pocket hole there, 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 here. Now it gets tricky on the edges because you don't have a lot of space right here, but we do want to make sure that we're holding that down as good as we can. So what I'll do a lot of times is put a second hole about right there. We don't want to get too deep into this because then we're going to be crossing the heads of the screws, which we don't want to do, but you can fit 2 in here without a major problem. The only thing you don't want to do is you don't want to squeeze too tight on your lines because there may be a little bit of gap there depending on how straight the boards are. Same thing over here. And it's that simple on the 25-inch boards. On the 28-inch boards, you've actually got a little bit more room, so it's not as huge a deal on your edges. So just know that you've got a little more room to play, but we still want to get it closer to the edge so that we know we've got a good hold on it. So now that we've got that, we're going to go ahead and drill all the pocket holes for both the long boards and the short side of the aprons. What you'll notice there is I used that line, I put it right in the center of this so that I could drill a hole on either side. Just a little pro tip to help you save a little bit of time. We're going to move it down a little bit, and then we're going to use the 2 outside holes that are right next to each other. It's going to look something like that. It may look a little bit messy, but that will work, and it will hold everything just fine. All right, now we're done with our pocket hole jig. Thank goodness, I know, after we pocket holed like 37 different holes. So we can go ahead and clean all this up. We do want our workbench clean for this next step because we're gonna go ahead and start assembling everything. And you don't want dust getting under stuff and making it different angles and, you know, just mess things up. Always try to keep a clean shop if you can. Set everything to the side, and we're gonna brush it off. If you don't have one of these little brushes for your tool or for your workshop, this is awesome. Grab one of these. Sweeping the floor in a trash can. I put mine on the floor because I've got a big dust collector with a the little dust, I don't know what you call them, the little floor connections to where you can sweep everything straight up into your dust collector, which is awesome. If you don't have a dust collector, check it out. There's actually a review on the site for the one that I run. Currently having some issues out of it you can read about there, but hoping that they're going to have a fix for it pretty quick. They've been, Rycon's been super responsive as far as trying to find a solution to the issue. So what we're going to need now is we're going to need our legs, the 4x4 post. We're going to go ahead and set those up and start attaching all of our aprons. This is going to be very simple. If you have a big enough clamp, that's great. You might not, so it might make it a little more difficult. Just know that up front. If you have a second person to help you, this is a great time to have them come and give you a hand. So let's go ahead and start going over how this is going to work. All right, so we've got our 2-inch pocket hole screws. It's just 2-inch course. That's what we're going to use for all of this. We've got our legs right here. I've got them kind of set off to the side. Just like everything else on this table, we want to pick what's going to be our best side to be showing. If you need wood filler, there's actually a great wood filler that I use. I'll link it down below and in the post as well. If you're having a hard time following on the video, make sure you check out the website. I'll put the exact link in the description as well. That way you can see it has everything written out, all the lists, the cut list, the actual amount of wood you're going to need to purchase from the store, and then it has these steps broken down. So make sure you check that out too. Might help you out a little bit. The cracks I don't mind. You're going to get cracks in almost all 4x4s, so you can either leave it if you like that look, or you can wood fill it. Like I said, the wood filler I'll link below is incredible. I've used it for a long time, and it does just a great job. So I can see on this leg, I've got these 2 crappy parts right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to face those in. Now, before I start attaching this, quick little beginner side note for all of you that may be a little helpful. I'm not doing it on this one, and I'll explain why. If you can, go ahead and sand everything down. Now, you don't want to curve your edges it's going to be attaching, but you can go ahead and start to get at least all the edges of your 4x4 post, and that's really the big thing. Get these 4x4s knocked out, you can go ahead and work on the 2x. I'm not, because the person I'm building this for today, buddy, they're going to do it themselves, so saving me a ton of time as far as sanding and staining goes. So we're just doing the build. So this is a good opportunity to pause the video, go ahead and grab your sander, hit this all up. I like to use the little circular sanders for this, for tabletops especially. They tend to leave less marks and do a better job, I think, than some of the other sanders out there. So anyways, let's go ahead and put this together. All we're going to do is pick our best sides, not only what's going to be facing out, because we'll have an apron. Think of a table. We're going to have an apron coming out 2 sides. So I'm going to put that crappy corner on the inside. And you want to make sure you have what's going to be top and bottom. And so top and bottom from this one, 1/2 dozen the other. So I'm actually going to do the top down here. I know, we're backwards. You got to think, we're about to attach our apron to the bottom down here using our workbench as a flat area. So this down here is technically my top. This is my bottom. The biggest mistake that even I make all the time, guys that worked for me back in the day, guys that I'd had working for me for a long time that had also built a ton of these tables, always is make sure that your pocket holes are going the right direction. Because right now we're not going to be screwing the ones down to the table because we don't have the tabletop yet. And so at the moment, you're just going to be going into the sides, and I can't tell you how many times I've put this on only to realize that my pocket holes are not the right orientation for screwing into the tabletop. So we're going to make sure that our pocket holes are facing down. And then on our table, we want our apron to inset by a 1/2 inch on each leg. So we'll grab a tape measure. You can either make a mark or, kind of put it up there and hold it and do all that. I'll tell you, it'll be a little bit easier to make a mark. And if you want to make a mark, go ahead and make your mark at 2 inches, because that's going to be the inside of your board. Board's 1.5 inches thick. We're giving a 1/2 inch gap. And so it's going to look about like that right there, if you can tell on the bottom. Make it a little prettier. Let's go ahead and do that. We'll mark these, mark it at 2 inches, and then we're just going to start attaching everything. very simple. We're going to start with our 25-inch boards, the end of our table, and then we'll start doing our longer boards. Let's get after it. All right, so as you can imagine, this 28-inch board is going to go right in the center. You may have to cut it down a little bit, depending on the actual fit. This one I'm going to have to skim just a touch of it off. If you do have to cut some off the edge, make sure you don't take it all off of one edge. Split it up between the two because you already have your Kreg holes drilled. And so I'm just going to have a touch off. You're going to a little bit of variance that you're going to have because of the lumber that's like, you know, not true size. So I'm going to chop this down, and then we're going to put this right in the center of the board. We already have some center marks that we made earlier. Pop this in, make sure that your pocket holes are down, and that'll be that. All right, we've got the apron all put together. We're getting real close to being done here. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to attach our planks, the tabletop, to our apron. Now, again, note for you to make things a little bit easier, and I'm not doing it here because, again, someone's going to be staining this, the person that wanted it, and so, and they're going to use a custom stain color. I don't know what it's going to be, but your planks, what I like to do is I like to lay them out on the table, see how they fit, make sure that they're in the right order. Sometimes you'll need to swap one over to make sure you've got flush edges, but then I like to take them and label them or number them, and then go ahead and stain what's going to be the cracks in between, because sometimes it's hard to get down in there with stain and you don't want the raw wood showing through. So I hope that makes sense. Jump in there, stain your edges. You don't have to stain that what's going to be the outside of the table, but at least hit the middle. You want to make sure that also doesn't run all the way around the table. So keep a cloth there, wipe it down right after you do that, and don't get too crazy with it. Don't just like throw it on there, because then it will run, and then it's going to look like crap on the other side when that dries, when you go to stain the rest of it, or you're going to have to sand it out. And if you've ever had to sand out stain, it's not fun. So we're going to go ahead and lay all of this out and attach our apron straight down to it. It's really that simple, guys. You can't mess this up. You're going to have 3 inches off of each leg is what's going to end up showing on the apron. So, you know, obviously you've got your marks for what's going to be the middle. See, son's just making all kinds of noise over there. You can't trust him. He's just loud all the time, as all 8-year-olds are. God love him. But he hasn't talked the whole time when I've been filming, so that's a huge win, right? All right, so you've got your middle mark. So we'll line it up going down that. But on your outsides, again, it's going to be a 3-inch space from your legs, not your apron, because your apron's inset. 3 inches from your legs out. So let's go ahead and lay it out and get her all put together and finish this table up, y'all. When you put them down there, I can't emphasize this enough. I've said it about everything else. Make sure you know what board is facing down. Right now, we're putting the tabletop face down because we're going to put our apron on top, which would make this the bottom. So your good board's on bottom, and then you also want to make sure that your 2 outside boards that'll be viewable, make sure that you have good edges there as well. That's very important. So we have it laid out. We're going to go ahead, put the apron on there, measure it out, screw it down, and that's going to be a table. And you did it. You're a rock star. Let's do this. Now that we have everything laid out, as far as the measurements go, it's going to be 2.5 inches from the outside of your legs on the side of your table, and the ends is going to be 3 inches, okay? Important to know, because the boards that come in, they're 9.25 inch, even though they're supposed to be 2 by 10. You don't get what you pay for no more. So I've got this measured perfectly right where I want it to be. Go ahead and start popping some screws down. Let's do it. You do want to make sure that you don't go too far and go through the top of your table here. And what I like to do is I like to hit the 4 corners. So I'm going to hit the 2 corners on one side first. Get those tight down. Then I'll go to the other side and make sure these boards are all pulled together. If you want to put a clamp on them here, you can. I don't get too crazy about that because I don't ever tell that much of a difference, to be honest, unless you have a super wonky board. There we go. Right, the sweat's rolling down here. We got the apron put on. So, if we were going to go ahead and finish this table out, which we're not, this is as far as we're going to go with it. Besides, you don't really want to see me sand and stain anyways. You know how to do that. But we'll go ahead and sand this down, make sure that everything's good and smooth, and then stain it out. On the top, when you're staining, you want to make sure you keep a cloth, or make sure you don't let a lot of stain dry and then try to put wet stain over it. It will show. And make sure when you're sanding, you hit all your corners, you round your edges, the ends, your end grain, make sure that's nice and smooth. It'll look a lot better with your stain. And after that, just enjoy your table. Guys, this is such a simple project. Don't care if you've been doing it forever or just learning. Anybody can build this table if you have the time and the tools. And, just jump after it. Don't be scared of it. If you want to see more builds, make sure you check out the website. It's buildingwithkinfolk.com. Of course, it'll be linked down below. And we've got all kinds of projects, including our live shop class. So if you're just learning and you want to know more, we actually do a live online interactive shop class. You don't even have to go out and catch the Rona. You can do it straight from home. Use all your tools, feel comfortable, feel confident, and we'll do some building together. And in that class, we actually build an Adirondack chair. So make sure you go and check that out. Thanks so much for watching. Can't wait to see you back in the workshop. Until next time, make sure you're following us on all the social medias.